This video is going to be about two pretty nasty accidents that happened on rides this year in May and more recently in July. I'm going to have to show you some grisly pictures as to what the wounds look like, just to give you an idea of what can happen. I'm not trying to be any more grisly than I have to be. If you don't like to look at these kind of pictures, you don't have to. But I want to show you the damage, the injuries, then I'm going to show you the locations of where, and I will explain how the incidents took place. I will show you the equipment and the various safety precautions that you can do to avoid all this, which unfortunately even more experienced riders like us who have been on the road for decades, we still make these same mistakes that many beginners also make. Here's the first nasty picture. These are the kneecaps of Neil, who fell off his Brompton P-Line, which is a modified bike. I will show you the bike. You can see that it's mostly bruises. The bones were not broken, which is pretty lucky, because if you fracture the knee joint, and I know people who have, that could mean a knee joint replacement. And of course, the knee joint is not replaceable. You can watch animations as to how they do it. It looks absolutely horrible. They basically cut out the whole knee joint and put a titanium replacement to it. But the titanium replacement has to be attached to the other two bones. And that looks like something out of Home Depot or a bike shop. They actually nail and screw the titanium into the bone. So it's better to avoid all this. And here is my glorious injury. This is more recent, from July. Luckily, I did not have a bone broken, but this area came close. I don't know if this was a sharp stone or a piece of metal. It looks quite mechanical. I was wearing shorts, so the whole knee joint and the shin bone, everything was exposed. My kneecaps were badly bruised, but no broken bone. Neil went to the doctor. I did not. This is an image of the left arm. Notice that you instinctively always hold out your hand. So your hands and arms and elbows are almost always going to be involved in any fall. The same thing with knees and shin bones. Almost every fall is going to involve them. Notice how badly bruised the forearm is. At the same time, notice that there's absolutely no damage to the hand, not even a bruise. Everything is in the forearm. Why? Because I wore my bike gloves. In fact, it was only by a hair strand that I did not have put them on, because the scooter ride from my residence to the train station was no more than 7 minutes. So I seriously thought, why bother? But on the other hand, I always feel very insecure about not wearing hand and eye protection. Those I almost always wear. My left leg was slightly scarred, but I basically fell onto the right side, and the shin bone part looked the worst. It still looks pretty bad. It's going to take it several months to heal, but the bone definitely was not broken. That's why I did not go to the doctor, because without a broken bone, I did not need a cast, and I did not want to spend the whole day getting x-rays and getting it stitched. It's going to show a couple of scars anyway once it heals. Let's look at the locations where these things happen. I am going to show you where Neil fell off of his Brompton. This is a steep downhill. Look at how steep this is. You can pick up very serious speeds on this. And most interestingly, both of us have been very familiar with the areas where we fell off. So the problem was not that we did not know the area. In fact, when I lead teams, and I have led them many times this way, when we get to this point, before the big downhill, I always give a speech to let people know that this is dangerous, and it's better if they do not accelerate as much as they could. You could probably get it up to 30-40 miles an hour if you wanted to, but it's better not to, because there are highway entrances here. There are these highway ramps. Cars are coming out and they suddenly bump into traffic. I mean, they're not supposed to. They are supposed to yield the right of way, but they don't necessarily do so. And then it goes further down, and it's just downhill and downhill, and yet more entrances. So these are high-risk intersections. Thank heaven Neil fell down away from an intersection, so at least he was not run over. But he was badly injured. He ended up at the doctor's office and did not continue the ride. I'm going to show you where I fell off, and I fell off a scooter. I was not on the Brompton. You can see how steep this place is. So you make a turn coming out here and you go down into this deep abyss, and even on the Zooter, I must have been doing 17, maybe even 20 miles an hour. I usually slow down here. It's best to just walk across this intersection, but instead I kept on speeding. I went down here, jumped up onto the sidewalk here, and I was even crazy enough to believe that I could make a sharp right turn and just continue gliding, which is insane. Look at what a sharp turn that would have been. You would have turned this way, and this is where I fell off, and you would have continued on a straight line here. That's nearly impossible to do on a Zooter. So let's look at the equipment. This is my Brompton Interceptor, which was not involved in any of these falls. This is Neil's bike. This is a very good looking P-line. You can see that the extremities are titanium. That would be 23 pounds instead of the steel frame 25, but the rims are also upgraded custom rims, so it might be even lower, maybe a 22-pound bicycle. This is probably one of the most beautiful Brompton that I've seen on rides. It's really an excellent bike. And it's remarkable that both Neil and I fell off of an ultralight. The thing about ultralight is they cut corners because they emphasize lightness. The tires are racing tires. They have very little grip. If you touch anything wet, or even some of the very smooth areas like a piece of marble or metal, it easily slides out from under you and you may lose control. The brakes are not the best on the Brompton. These are just mechanical rim brakes. Obviously, there is not an easy way to stop. And even if you could freeze the front wheel, there is a chance that you would be just saltoing over the front handlebar because you have a relatively short wheelbase and you sit very tall on top of all of this. As unstable as the Brompton P-Line is, my Zooter is even more unstable. I'm going to give you some links below if you haven't watched the videos on the handlebar upgrade that I have done on the Zooter. You can see how incredibly wide this handlebar is. This is a 26-inch mountain bike handlebar that I managed to attach to the Zooter, and here you can see just how wide this thing is. It's almost the same as the height of the steering column from the body all the way to the top. So this is what I was riding, and because it's so wide, it gives you enormous control. So even if you get caught in a tiny crack in the road that usually grips the front wheel, you can just jerk it out of it because you have so much leverage moving the front wheel left and right. But the problem is, what if this front wheel, which once again, this is very light, this is an 11-pound ultralight scooter made of aluminum. What if this smooth little, very skinny little, hard, non-inflatable solid tire just slips out from under you? What are you going to do then, even though you have this much of a leverage at the handlebar? There's not much you can do. In fact, the fall occurred within a fraction of a second. It's an instant thing. Why do these problems occur? I think the number one, obviously the location in both cases was the downhill. So the downhills are areas that you really have to watch out for because you can pick up speeds that make your bike or scooter nearly uncontrollable. So it's better to control the speed and not allow it to get too fast. But the other problem is that these very light bikes or vehicles are really cutting corners when it comes to security. So the brakes are selected for lightweight. Same thing with the tires, the rim, everything is set up for maximum lightness, not so much for the best road traction. And also the lighter the vehicle, the less security you have because a heavy vehicle sits on the road with much more stability. And this is true of motorcycles, bicycles, scooter, whatever. Neil was wearing a hard hat, which many people call a bicycle helmet. I have criticized them many times because they are just hard hats. They don't protect your face, your eyes, which are the most precious part on your head. And in these cases, neither of us benefited from wearing anything on our head. It's whether you're wearing knee protection. Neil suffered a fractured thumb, or one of the bone in his palm or hand was fractured, which should give you an idea of just how much pressure can fall onto your hand because you instinctively hold out your hand. But the thing is, I don't know if Neil was wearing bike gloves or not. I think bike gloves are an absolute must. I always wear them, even when I just go to the grocery store, or in this case, as I rode to the train station in 7 minutes. And this is what it can do. If I was wearing knee protection in addition to that, I probably would have just stood up with very slight bruises and would have just moved on. So all of this happens because you don't wear the safety protection that you should be wearing, and you're wearing that hard hat which everybody thinks is going to make you so secure. The proof is in these incidents. It doesn't really do much of anything. There might be incidents where you end up on the top of your head, but in most cases, most people are never going to be in those kind of incidents. Most people end up in accidents where your knees, your hand, your wrist, your elbows, those are the areas, your shin bone, that are always going to be affected. So you should be wearing stuff that protects those areas, because these are the kind of falls that will happen or have already happened to practically everyone. Another issue is overconfidence. I became very confident with my scooter, with the new handlebar. I had so much control and I started racing faster. I only installed those handlebars maybe 2 months ago, and it didn't take long for me to end up bloody all over the place. The situation was quite similar for Neil because he has done this downhill many times. I have done it many times. I have explained to him several times how dangerous it can be to pick up too much speed on this downhill. So overconfidence coming from having an experience within a certain area, so you think you know it. If you look at studies, you'll find that most rapes of women occur or are perpetrated by men they know. It's not the stranger that they are wary of that commits most of the rape. It's men they are not aware of and not wary of because they know them. So it's just like these areas, you think you know a place because you have seen it many times, and that's when you start taking chances. So the conclusion from all of this is that you should never take chances even if you know the place. You should wear the kind of protection that really makes a difference. Your hands, your elbows, your knees, your shin bone, and obviously your eyes. The top of your head is the last spot that's ever going to be hit. I know it can happen. It has happened. If you end up in an accident that severe, then you're probably not going to be in a good shape no matter what you wear. This is all I wanted to say about this accident, so take precautions. As far as Neil is concerned, he's still not riding. He's not going to be riding until end of August. The same is true of myself. I have just purchased a small disposable electric scooter. It only costs $200. That's what I'm going to be using until the end of the summer, so as to ride around and run my errands, reducing pressure on the leg bones as much as possible. My next video is going to be about that e-scooter, and I've already posted several shorts about it, and I'm going to give you a lot of information on what you can do with these cheap scooters that only cost a couple $100 and really take a lot of pressure off, especially during the hot season when it's so easy to break a sweat no matter what you ride. Okay, this is it for the current video. Make sure to follow, share, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. I should mention here that my Brompton book is on sale permanently on a half price because I'm working on my second book. The second book is going to take another 2 or 3 months to complete, so it's not going to be around. This book is really cheap, and it's giving you all the information to turn your little small wheel bike or even a not so small wheel bike into a pocket rocket with or without electric support. Check out my shopping page. I have all the bikes here that I recommend, and that includes even the scooters. This is not the scooter I purchased because what I bought is a cheapy disposable little $200 Amazon scooter, but if you want something more long-term, then these are pretty much your best choices. Also, make sure to check out my Amazon store, which is full of stuff. If you click on the book, you get here to the Amazon store, and practically everything I've ever endorsed on this channel is here. You can do your research and make purchases right online. Okay, this is it, and I'll see you in the next one.
I'll be back.